Far away on a hillside, in a lonely forest, grew 3 trees. The trees were very happy with their life on the hillside. They loved the warm sunlight of summer, the cool silvery rains of spring, the gorgeous gold of autumn, and the winter's blanket of glistening snow. They loved too to dream of what they might be when they grew up. For every year the people came and cut down the trees that were fully grown. And later they were made into beautiful and useful things. One day, as the time grew near for the woodcutters to come, the 3 trees began to talk. "Someday," said the first and the largest of the trees, "the woodcutters will come to cut me down. And when they do, I hope they make me into a beautiful cradle. A cradle fit for a king. A cradle in which might be placed the crown prince of a mighty kingdom. And I shall live forever in a beautiful palace." The second tree, not quite as large as the first, but a beautiful spreading tree, spoke. "That would not please me at all. I want to be something important. I should like to be part of a beautiful ship, strong and stately. I would like to cross many waters and carry people and wonderful messages to faraway lands. Yes, that's what I would like to do." a smaller but nonetheless stately, stood off by itself apparently in deep reflection. Choosing not to speak. "And what about you, little tree?" asked the first. "Have you no dreams for the future?" "No dreams," the tree answered, "except to stand on a hillside and point people to God. What better might I ask than that?" One day, the woodsman came into the forest. Sure enough, they cut down the first tree. The tree quivered with joy. "I wonder if I shall be made into a beautiful cradle now." "Oh, I hope so. I've waited so long." But the tree was not made into a beautiful cradle. Instead, it was hewn down and cut into rough pieces and carelessly nailed together to form a crude manger in a stable in Bethlehem. The tree was broken-hearted, for only once did anything happen to relieve the monotony of its dull existence. It was at that time of the year when the census was being taken, and everyone had to go back to his or her birthplace. The inn in Bethlehem was so crowded that one young man and his wife actually had to sleep in the stable that night. It seemed that the little manger could hear beautiful music, as though angels were singing, and a strange, bright star shone right down on the manger. And so the first tree spent its entire existence in bitterness, feeling it had missed the great ambition to cradle a king. Months passed by, and again the woodcutters came into the forest. This time the second tree was brought to the ground. I wonder if I will be part of a beautiful ship, so that I might do great and wonderful things of my dreams. But the second tree did not do great and wonderful things. Instead of being part of a beautiful ship, it was made into a tiny fishing vessel and sold to a Galilean fisherman named Peter. The second tree was broken-hearted, for only once did anything of importance happen during its entire life to relieve its drab existence. One day, a man followed by a great multitude made his way to the seashore where the little boat was anchored. As the man began to speak, the crowd pressed nearer. Finally, it became necessary for this wonderful man to step into the boat and push out away from shore that he might better speak to the multitude. He spoke words of wisdom, of beauty and love. And when he had finished, he told Peter to launch out into the deep and let down his nets. As Peter did so, there were so many fish caught in the nets that they broke. And the little boat trembled under the weight of the greatest load it had ever carried. And so the little boat spent its life feeling bitter because it was only a little boat that never sailed beyond the shores of the Galilean Sea. And because its only cargo, except for this one time, had always been fish, it felt that it had never realized a great ambition to carry great people and wonderful messages as part of a great ship. As the months passed by, the woodcutters again came to the forest. This time they chose among others the third and the smallest of the trees. This is the tree that had wanted but to stand on a hillside and point people to God. How its heart ached as it was hewn to the ground. Its bark and branches were roughly torn. They cut it in 2 pieces and then nailed together again to form a crude cross. In all of its life, it was only used once. The little tree was taken outside to the city of Jerusalem, where an angry mob was milling and cursing. in the midst of the great throng was a young man who seemed to be the subject of the anger and disturbance. The crowd cursed and spit upon the young man. They beat him and made him carry his own cross on his back. Up the hill called Golgotha, the young man carried the rough cross. When he stumbled and fell under the load, another man named Simon carried the cross up the hill. The little tree was amazed at what followed. The horror of the tragic hour was breaking upon the little tree. The people in the crowd meant to crucify the young man on the little tree, so recently made into a rough cross. Nails with excruciating pain were driven into the hands and the feet of the comely young man. On his head was plaited a crown of thorns. Finally, a sword was thrust into his side. A sign was placed above his head reading, "The King of the Jews." Once the young man looked up towards God and said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." How the young man could do it, the little tree knew not. And suddenly, a miracle took place. The man cried out with a loud voice and gave up the ghost. The sky darkened, the earth quaked. Later, the little tree didn't understand all this trouble and shame and agony. But it did know that its wish was fulfilled and that it had been able to point one, perhaps many, to God.